Hey guys, this is Bentley from H&H Color Lab, and I thought I would share with you how I set up and do copy work for H&H and talk about some of the equipment and how I place it around. A couple things. First off, I try to use a prime lens. In this case, I'm using a 100mm lens, and on my lens I have a polarizer filter. That's very important. The second thing that goes with that is on my lights, which I'll show you in just a second, I have a polarizer filter on my lights. So I'm polarizing the intensity of the lights, or the wavelength out of lights, as well as the light that's being reflected into the lens of my camera. Those two things will really help cut down a lot of reflections or glares that you're getting. So this is one of the lights that I use, and you can see I have the polarizer filter on it. And on my polarizer filters, I've identified how they work for the lenses, and so I've tagged them all with this side up. And I just happen to be using an Elechrome flash. It doesn't really matter, but you notice I'm using this without any modifiers on it. I'm just using the strict light. If we step back here from kind of behind the camera position, you can see that I have two lights here, one on either side, and they're coming out at a 45-degree angle to where I'm going to be photographing, and then the camera stand is right in the middle. So for my holding up the artwork, I have a large piece of black fiberboard, Sintra or something, I don't know what it is, I've had it for quite a long time, and I also put a piece down at the bottom that helps control reflections, and this is big enough that I can set up probably through a 2024 size. I've got some larger pieces if I need to do a larger piece of artwork. So I'm going to set up the artwork so you can see what that looks like next. So looking at this, if you can tell, I took a small piece of the fiberboard and just velcroed it so I have a little lip. And that gives me a place to set the print up so that it's not right on the bottom of the floor. At this point, I'm going to put the camera up on the tripod or camera stand and try to get everything as square as possible to the image. You'll also notice on this down here at the front, I have a I1 color checker passport. I tend to do this with all my copy work just to help make sure everything comes out as accurate as possible. I've also done a custom white balance. When I'm setting this up and metering, I try to get within about 1/10 of a stop exposure the same between the left side and the right side of the image. And usually that's pretty easy to do up through 16 by 20. 2024 and larger, you have to work your lights a little bit harder. Stepping back now, we can see the camera in relationship to one of the lights and the artwork. And I have gotten this looking through my viewfinder pretty much as square as possible. So next we're going to jump into, we're going to pretend I've taken this picture. We're actually going to bring this image into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you a couple tips and tricks in there for copy work. Okay, so now we have the image into Photoshop, and we're going to go in and look at some quick Photoshop tricks to work with this copy work. Here's the big trick in Photoshop to know. On your tool palette, go to your crop tool and choose perspective crop. Now, even though I did everything I could to try to line this up in the camera, it's not always quite perfect. And in the film days, that would have been a big deal. But with the newest versions of Photoshop, I can actually drag out a crop window on the image, and then I'm going to zoom up to each corner and pull that in and make it line up. Now, if you've done this with a wider angle lens, this is where you're going to see the barrel distortion, and you're not going to get, you're going to notice the corners may line up, but you're going to have bows in the image on the edges. That also can happen if you are have a canvas or a artwork that's not quite square. So by lining that all up, zooming out and just apply that, it's going to crop that up square, and then I'm ready to do any artwork or whatever else I need to do to finish it up.